Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I want to talk about why avoidants shut down when they fall in love. So, I want to give a background of this. So, first, there are two types of avoidance. Um, One is a dismissive avoidant, and then one is fearful avoidant. With dismissive avoidants, particularly, they typically grow up where there isn't direct or overt abuse or neglect, but it's very indirect. It's much more like parents are very hard on them. Parents have very high expectations for them. Sometimes parents even pedestal them, to which the pressure for that person is very high. But they very much do not expect that person, for example, the child, to show emotions. And so they have a very negative view of high emotions. Fearful avoidant, they will have a mixture of a lot of things, but more often than not, they have bullying in their background, sometimes abuse in their background, sometimes, but very often neglect, much more extreme versions of neglect. Their parents may blame them very outwardly. Their parents may not praise them much at all. Sometimes this can happen not through caregivers though, and I think it's very important, but it usually happens when you're young. And I'll probably make videos on how this occurs in more detail, but I wanted to explain that because sometimes it's very different, but most avoidants do have this moment, and so we can talk about that together. The first one is that they're overwhelmed with their feelings for you. And so both fearful and dismissive avoidance, what happened, regardless of gender, is feelings are bad, right? If you're a fearful avoidant, for example, let's say you're a fearful avoidant female, okay? Let's give this as an example. A fearful avoidant female believes that emotions are wrong. She might be abused because of it. She might be hurt for it. Just an example, okay? Let's give another example. Let's say a dismissive avoidant male, okay? He thinks that these overwhelming feelings show that he's weak, that he's out of control, that someone can take advantage of him. And so he'd rather just check out, right? Both of them just want to opt out of these feelings. And so that's why they shut down, because you can't just literally opt out of feelings. It's not possible. And so there's usually a process prior to it, which is that shutting down, because that's what they did when there was a lot of feelings, because there wasn't any other option. They weren't allowed to communicate. They weren't allowed to overindulge in those feelings. They would get reprimanded. And so the only option is to shut down. Okay. The next one is they feel pressure to give more. Much more common with dismissive avoidance, but it does happen with fearful avoidance. Okay, now with fearful avoidance, they might be even more pressured if you're an anxious person. Not that it's your fault, I'm not saying that, but if you're secure, for example, and you're not pressuring them, still what happens is they might feel pressure because there's a part of them that does want to give more, okay? So they want to give more, which is the pressure that they feel, but they're afraid that it's not going to be good enough, or they don't know why they feel this way. And so they shut down to process those feelings. And so I do want to explain another thing. A lot of times, once they process the feelings, they come back. They might not even ever leave you. They just might be distant for a moment, maybe a couple days, a couple months. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it is true. I'm going to give an example of this as well, the pressure example. Let's say we have a female avoidant. Let's say she's a dismissive avoidant, okay? She wants to give you more, but she will also face the feeling, she thinks, of maybe it's not enough. Maybe you'll reprimand her. Maybe you will not be satisfied. Maybe you'll continue to ask for more. And she feels like that's her limit. She can't, or she's afraid that you'll make fun of her, judge her, etc. And so all of those feelings are tangled with the feeling of falling in love. And so that's why she's shutting down. She untangles them. She might realize, okay, he or she's not going to do that to me, or I can just communicate, or it's not even that bad. Let me start slow. But she needs time, which is why that shutting down happens. Does that make sense? The next one is they love you and they don't want you to use it against them. Okay. Fearful avoidance do this more often, but dismissive avoidance do too. In fact, that was an example I gave in the first point, right? With a dismissive avoidant. Both of them feel like it might be used against them, but fearful avoidance, they do it in such a way where they're actually afraid, depending on their history, because fearful avoidance are very complex. Anyone who says otherwise does not understand fearful avoidance. They're very complex. That's how it's formed, right? Based on actual research, based on how this was occurring, fearful avoidance have experienced a lot of things, right? And I'm not making excuses for fearful avoidance or dismissive avoidance in general, but it's a lot. And so it's very likely many people have used a lot of things against them. And so if you were them, maybe you'd understand. And so I just want you to be patient with your partner. And of course, they should be patient with you, but more particularly with a fearful avoidant, because the trauma that some fearful avoidants have seen is some things that a lot of us cannot even fathom. I know I say that a lot in some of my videos, but it's really important to mention that. A lot of you guys are also fearful avoidant, so you probably get it, right? Actually, I think most of you are. I'm pretty sure. Most of the ones I've had calls with of you guys are fearful avoidant, and you've had a lot of trauma. And actually, literally, people have used your feelings against you or things that you feel in general. And so a lot of times fearful avoidants get really uncomfortable with vulnerability for that reason. Dismissive avoidants, it's not as like deep, but they still are afraid you'll use it against them. You're going to expect more from them, etc. And so often what they do is they'll shut down, maybe back off a little bit. And when they feel like it's safe and it's okay, they start leaning in a little bit more. Fearful avoidants take longer to do that, but it's a little more hot and cold back and forth. The next one is they're actually processing their feelings. And like I had mentioned, they'll get comfortable soon. And it's usually a good thing if this is happening because they're deciding if they want to commit further, okay? And so let's give an example. Let's do a male, because last time we did a female. Let's do a dismissive avoidant male. He is falling in love. He realizes it. Maybe he has bad experiences or he's just not really sure what to do, so he takes time away. Doesn't mean that he's ghosting you or not talking to you. It might, sadly. But it might be that he's just answering shorter replies. Maybe he's not calling you as much, not hanging out with you as much, taking a little bit of space. And he's actually deciding, okay, now that I know I love this person, or I feel that I love this person, what's next? Do I have to plan getting married at one point? Does it mean that we have to move faster? Does it mean that eventually I'm going to have to move in with this person? There's a lot of fears. So normally they're deciding, okay, what is the next step? And often the next step is that they will come back with some expectations. It's not, I know it doesn't sound very romantic, but they're going to come back with expectations for you. And if that happens, they might say, hey, I'm a person that needs some space. I need A, B, and C. It doesn't mean they don't like you. They're not pushing you away. They're actually prepping you and prompting you for what a relationship will look like with them. It sounds backwards, but they're just telling you, hey, these are my needs because I love you and I want you to meet my needs. What I think a lot of people make a mistake is they do exactly what the person is saying, but they don't meet them with their needs. What you should do, what I recommend and what I've talked about on calls that I've had with you guys, specific things. I'm not going to share the specifics with online, but often you tell them what your needs are. So you say, okay, I can do that. That makes sense. This is what I need. How can we meet in the middle? Very, non-specific example, but hopefully that will give you some direction. If you need a specific call with me, it's pinned in the comments. The next one is, if you've been asking for more lately, sometimes it pressures them. And this one is pretty easy. Just back off a little bit, build a little bit more rapport, and then re-ask when they're ready. It's okay. Everybody, moves at a different pace. We're okay, right? And the last one is they correlate falling in love with getting hurt. So subconsciously, they're preparing for that. And if they find out they're not going to get hurt, it's fine. This one is pretty common with fearful avoidance. It does happen with dismissive avoidance, but it's not the same way fearful avoidance. Fearful avoidance are literally bracing themselves. Like some of them, you can ask them. Like I work with them, right? Like I work with a lot of you guys. You can tell when you're bracing for that connection, commitment, and the potential of being abandoned or hurt or whatever it may be. And by processing it more in sessions and therapy, etc., which we've done so, you can find maybe the source of it. Maybe it doesn't come from your boyfriend or your girlfriend or who you're afraid that will hurt you. It comes from your mom or your dad or that kid that did something to you when you were younger. Just examples, right? This is educational, okay? But these are the reasons why avoidants shut down when they fall in love. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.